Bully, I got to be honest with you there. That ending kind of gives me chills. That was one hell of an ending to SummerSlam. And, in a lot of ways, fans could say they expected it, but, you never know in the world of professional wrestling. It could have been Roman. It could have been Rock. It could have been Paul Heyman. Or maybe it just could have been a one-on-one match with Solo Sikoa and Cody Rhodes. But I love what I just heard. Fans excited to hear Roman Reigns return, but they were excited about Cody getting the 1, 2, 3, and you heard the crowd say 1, 2, 3 along with the referee when Cody Rhodes retained that championship. But the big moment is the return of Roman Reigns and the acknowledgement between Roman and Cody. So it seems like, Bully, moving forward, it's going to be the story of Roman's and getting back to being the head of the table of the bloodline.
Riding the wave of the pop. So in order, we get Roman's return and then the finish, correct?
Yes.
Roman's return, it was like a tidal wave. Like the biggest tidal wave that you could possibly get on that night of energy and sound. So the people are so up for the return of Roman Reigns that Cody and Solo are able to ride that wave of the pop. Thus, the pop for the finish gets even bigger. And that's what I personally like to call it, riding the wave of the pop. I always like to put stuff together where here comes your first pop, you get to the top of the pop, and then you do something else so you can ride the waves of it. Kind of like a surfer wants to ride the highest wave. And then he's always looking to ride the wave as high as possible before you start coming down, down, down. And that's what they did. As we talked about, the return of Roman Reigns was going to be godlike. The sound in that arena was off the charts. Some of the sound that we're hearing on social media, I don't even does it justice. 50,000 people were on their feet going crazy for a guy that 7, 8 years ago was getting booed out of the building. My God, what a turnaround for Roman Reigns. Now, I know it's taken years, but that goes to show you that sometimes in pro wrestling, that's just what it takes.
And 4 months ago, he was being booed at WrestleMania against Cody. And then we didn't see him again until last night. So he went from being the most hated man in the stadium 4 months ago to the most popular wrestler in the stadium on Saturday without even making an appearance in between.
I got a chance to talk to Cody before the match, and he was concerned about the match. He wanted the match to truly mean as much as everything else that was going to go on that night, because he knew in the back of his head that other things could take precedent, or when the match was all over, people would be talking about other things other than the match. I thought Cody and Solo did a good job. They did the best possible job they could, along with the run-ins. I love the entrance to the ring, by the way. I love the whole build-up to, Cody's entrance. But on the back end, you had the inevitable of the return of Roman Reigns, which, as we talked about last Friday on a phenomenal episode of Busted Open, I was very proud of last Friday's show. As we talked about, you're going to have your match of the night. You're going to have your moment of the night. The return of Roman Reigns was your moment, without a doubt.
Yeah, and it's impossible. I mean, and I thought the match between Cody and Solo was very solid. I'm not taking anything away from the match itself. Bully, it's impossible because people were waiting for that moment. That was the moment that people were waiting for. We talked about it on the show on Friday. If you didn't deliver with that moment, I think fans would have been disappointed, leaving the stadium if it was just a regular Cody Solo match. I'm just being honest here. As much as I love Cody, the fans were waiting for the return of Roman Reigns. And now everything's back in place. And now, like a good show is supposed to, it answers questions, but it also brings up new questions. And that's why you have to watch this week, because I can't wait to see what happens tonight on Raw. I can't wait to see what happens on Friday night on SmackDown. But there was no way you were going to trump. There's no way that match was going to trump the moment of Roman returning. It didn't matter if that was a 7-star match in Tokyo. You weren't going to trump the return of Roman Reigns. That was the moment. And obviously that's the first moment that we're talking about here on a Monday.
It's impossible to trump that moment. This is a megastar. And as we've talked about, the Raw after WrestleMania, when Cody thanked Roman, he said, without Roman, we're not in this place right now. And 20,000 people in Philadelphia are chanting, "Thank you, Roman." From that moment until that entrance at WrestleMania, you saw how the opinion of Roman Reigns was changed in the minds of wrestling fans. This guy, I'm not comparing him to Jesus, but he walks on water now in the WWE because his character is so there. Roman has an aura to him that not many professional wrestlers have. He has this it factor that's next level, where he can just stand there. And you saw the way he walked to the ring, and just he soaks it all in. And now we're going to see everything unfold. Now it's a wait and see. Where are we going with Roman? What's Roman's first order of business? Who is Roman targeting? We already seen him get a piece of Solo. Is it unfinished family business now? Or does Roman want back that undisputed championship?
Yeah, I think at some point he's going to want that undisputed championship. There's no doubt. Now be waiting in the wings, Bully. But I think right now, at least for Roman, from what we saw on Saturday, his attention is at the head of the table in the bloodline. So he wants, first and foremost, we always said, the blood is thicker than water, and those family ties are what's most important to Roman and that family. So I think he made that statement on Saturday that it's about the head of the table. So listen, Cody has already beaten Solo. Cody beat Solo on Saturday. He's beaten Solo before. There's no reason to continue that story with Cody. So I think on Friday, we're going to find out the next chapter for Cody's championship run. Who's the next opponent for Cody Rhodes? Because I think right now he's stepping away from the bloodline. No reason to go back there. And that's smart, because if you're going to have room for Cody and Roman on the same show, they have to be involved in different stories. I don't think one story has room for both of those people.
Here's the thing, though. If Roman goes over to the bloodline and he's taking care of family business, that is going to be such an important story that I think it will overshadow, outshine, maybe whoever Cody's next opponent is.
It depends on the opponent.
Okay, give me an opponent. Give me an opponent for Cody that would generate more interest for you than Roman going after the bloodline.
It would have to be something personal. It'd have to be a surprise, a la a Kevin Owens or a Randy Orton. Because of the friendship with Kevin Owens and the way Kevin Owens has helped him, it would be a shock, it would be a surprise, and that would be a story I'd be into. And, of course, we've talked a lot about the personal story that there is between him and Randy Orton. Outside of that, I can't name another one that would trump it. The only thing that kind of hurts Roman and Solo is the fact that Roman has nothing to prove to Solo. We talked about at times the new bloodline looked weak up until maybe the last month and a half. And now Solo has lost again. So Solo is going to go into Friday kind of like a little bit with his tail between his legs. Solo isn't exactly going into Friday Night SmackDown looking strong after what happened on Saturday. It's still going to be a great story, but I don't know what the fans' perception is going to be about the new bloodline and Solo Sikoa.
Why? What concerns you about the fans' perception about Solo and the new bloodline?
Because I just don't think they've looked strong enough that they're any threat to Roman Reigns.
Well, then now it's time for them to get their heat back.
They have to. On Friday, that's a great point by you, Bully. And honestly, and I haven't read any reports, what's the health of Jacob Fatu? He obviously took, he got some sort of injury on Saturday, Bully. And there's all the video footage of him limping and needing help to get into the back. Like, what's the health of Jacob Fatu? Because the strongest person of this new version of the Bloodline, to me, has been Jacob Fatu.
I don't know if you saw it, but there was a picture out there of Jacob Fatu maybe at a convenience store that a fan took with him where he was in a walking boot. So if you're in a walking boot, that means you need, it's not the worst thing in the world because you're not in a cast, but you're definitely, there's something going on. I wore a walking boot for a while. I know what it's like. There's something going on there where he can't put pressure on his knee, his leg, his foot, whatever.
Yeah, it sucks. But you're right. We're going to have to see the Bloodline get the advantage on Roman Reigns on Friday, or at least the next couple. If we even see Roman Reigns on Friday, we may not see Roman Reigns. It may be a couple of weeks before we see Roman Reigns on SmackDown. It might be even best to give it a little bit of air and give it a little bit of space here because Bully, you're going to have to heat back up this new version of the Bloodline. And then we're going to have to be figuring out what the next step is when it comes to this new Bloodline and how that factors into Roman. But you just said it. What's next for Cody Rhodes? Because obviously he's moving on.
And the heat that the Bloodline has to get back cannot be on anybody else but Roman Reigns. This has to be a situation where Roman Reigns is in the middle of the ring and like a pack of hyenas, the Bloodline have to attack. And just, in my opinion, that's where the heat lies. They have to get it on Roman Reigns. Roman must be left laying by the Bloodline. That's how you get heat back on them.
Has to, and we'll see if that happens. The match itself, Bully, from top to bottom, we know how big the moment was with Roman Reigns, and it was a big moment. And it's crazy that, man, you look at coming out of WrestleMania, right? And WrestleMania 40 being the biggest WrestleMania of all time financially, eyes on the product, everything. Immediately after that, you lose The Rock and you lose Roman. And then over the course of the last 3 months, business has not dipped. It's about, we had 57,000 fans at SummerSlam on Saturday. But I'm wondering now, if possible, if this is even going to elevate things more, because now Roman's back, and now you're probably thinking about what's going to happen at Survivor Series, and as we get closer to WrestleMania. I remember Paul Heyman saying after LA's WrestleMania, somebody asked him, where are we when it comes to the Bloodline story? And he was like, we're in the third inning. I have a feeling that now we may be in the fifth or sixth inning. I still think there's a lot more story to tell, Bully, when it comes to the Bloodline.
There's so much more story to tell. We just got the return of Roman, who is now perceived as a babyface. Excuse me, sorry. We have Roman going after the Bloodline.
Was that a cough or a sneeze or a combination of both?
That was a cough that came out of nowhere that I tried to control at the last second. I couldn't get the cough button quick enough. We have Roman with Bloodline. We have Roman with Cody. We have the potential return of The Rock. There's so much going on here. The return of Heyman. There's so much to do. There's so many great stories to tell with so many great characters involved. The veterans, the younger Bloodline. Who knows? Maybe we see another new young member of the Bloodline come in. You just never know. The 97 cousins are rearing every single one of their heads.
And already people are taking pictures of other family members about when they might be debuting in the WWE, just like we were waiting for Jacob Fatu to debut. All right, let's go back to the match on Saturday, Bully. Do you think that fans waiting for that moment and waiting for that return of Roman Reigns took away from the match between Cody and Solo on Saturday?
It didn't take away, but I don't think it allowed people to fully invest in the whole in the whole match. You always had something on your mind. You were always on my mind.
It's true.
I
think
always on my mind.
fans were waiting for Roman to return. Like fans, like even, and I think you had to, because the way, as soon as you heard on Friday on SmackDown that it was going to be a Bloodline rules match, there you go. I think people right there are like, all right, we're getting Roman Reigns. And then when you saw the other members of the Bloodline come out, and then you saw Randy and KO chase them away and out of the stadium, then I think everybody's eyes were towards that entrance ramp waiting for Roman Reigns to come out at some point.
It's natural. That's what's going to happen when there's that much anticipation for something. And that's why we talked about last Friday. Would you have been disappointed not only with the match, but all of SummerSlam if you didn't get the return of Roman? Now, we started off the show putting over SummerSlam as a whole. Great show. So let me ask you this, Dave. If you didn't get the return of Roman Reigns, what would your grade of SummerSlam have been?
If the match order was the way that it was on Saturday and you finished in your main event with Cody and Solo, if that was your main event, I think I would have been a little disappointed in what happened on Saturday. I would still put it over. I would still give it a 9 out of 10. But the one thing I would say is, like, I think they missed the opportunity for a big moment. That would be my right? And I think that's being fair. But like I said on our show on Friday, Bully, I think if Cody and Solo was earlier on in the show, then I don't think fans' expectations would have been high that you were getting a returning Roman Reigns. And I think that would be different. It's a lot of times, Bully, it's about match placement when it comes to an event like we saw on Saturday.
It definitely is about match placement, but you're talking about the Undisputed Championship, which I believe should always go on last. Getting back to the beginning, I just want to put it over again. I loved the shot in the bus with Pharaoh. I love seeing Cody hook Pharaoh up and then walk out of the bus. I love seeing Cody walk with Pharaoh to the ring. I love the reveal of Arn Anderson. I love the pep talk from Arn. I love Arn telling Cody, don't worry, you have friends too, as if Arn made sure to let everybody know that Cody is going to need backup. I loved Cody stopping by, the costume designer who put his robe together and have him put it on. Like, that whole lead up, that whole builds anticipation for the entrance and the match. And I thought it was a good mixture of absolutely everything. That is very real. I want to see those moments. It's not just a question of the entrance. We know that happened. The WWE has now taken the next step into showing us everything that leads up to the moment. And to me, that's extremely entertaining.
I loved it. I love seeing Arn Anderson. We had a lot of discussion on this show about Arn. We talked about with Cody where he mentioned Arn and said that, maybe he would love to have Arn a part of things. We spoke to Arn Anderson where he's like, I'm fine with where I am. But if it was just a one-off or if we're going to see more of Arn Anderson in the future, I'm here for it because I thought that was a great moment. There was a lot of Easter eggs during that entrance. But we all know that you got the tour bus. You all know what the hallways look like in the to see that march from the tour bus, to see him completely focused and ready to go, coming off that bus, greeting people along the way and then going through gorilla position out. I'm with you, Bully. I love that stuff. And to see that unfold, I thought was absolutely fantastic. And it didn't take anything away from the live crowd. I think for the live crowd, it built the anticipation of his entrance. And again, I loved his entrance as well. That shows you that what you're about to see is a big match. What you're about to see is the main event of the show. And I thought they worked that out perfectly.
It's all about the build-up.
Seth Rollins, your special guest referee against CM Punk and Drew McIntyre in a matchup that, Bully, a lot of fans thought could be the main event. And it was the one match on the card that wasn't for a title, but that's how personal it was. Drew McIntyre joined us on Friday, Bully, where he wasn't even scheduled to join us but he was just spitting at the bit to talk about CM Punk, grabbed the headset, jumped on with us. It's as personal can get between those two.
Couple of questions for you. Just let's quick hit this. Did you enjoy the match?
I did enjoy the match, yes.
You were a little hesitant, so tell me why you hesitated.
The way I watched it when I first saw it at the stadium was different than the way I watched it when I watched it last night off of Peacock.
Tell me about the stadium.
The stadium was hot. The stadium was hot for that match.
Okay, and then when you watched it,
but at the stadium, Bully, you don't hear or see a lot of what's going on. So there's things that you miss, and the verbiage between Seth and CM Punk obviously could not hear that. And I thought it was a good match. I'm not saying that it wasn't. I thought it was a good match, but it was taken to another level when I was able to go back and watch it. And I missed the whole thing with the bracelet, that Seth was wearing the bracelet. Like when I was watching it back last night, I was like, holy shit, he put the bracelet on. And then the verbiage between those two, obviously when you're in the stadium, you can't hear that. So it was taken to a completely different level when I was able to watch that match back last night.
So let's go to your TV viewing experience. What did you think about the physicality of the match?
I love the physicality match because it happened right off the bat. You talk about it. As soon as that bell rung, it was just fist flying. And you could tell, just like what Drew McIntyre said to us on our air on Friday, his intent was to beat the shit out of CM Punk. When it came to CM Punk, I kind of like what Michael Cole said in the fact that Punk screwed himself in that match because Drew McIntyre had one goal in that match, and that was to beat the shit out of CM Punk. CM Punk, his mind, it was, 6 different directions. He was completely unfocused in that match, and I think that's a big reason why Drew McIntyre was able to pick up the victory.
How did you feel about the story of the bracelet in the body of the match?
I loved it.
Why?
Because they've been telling the story of that bracelet for weeks and weeks on TV. So if you're going to have that match, somehow, some way, that bracelet has to show its face. CM Punk is not somebody that shows his emotions much, if at all. We see a lot of anger from CM Punk. We see him being a wise ass all the time. But when do you see pure emotion from CM Punk? You really don't. Except for this story leading into the match on Saturday night because of that bracelet. A fan gave him that bracelet that had his dog's name, Larry, on it, had his wife's name on it. So that meant a lot to CM Punk. And he really doesn't put his guard down much. That bracelet had him put his guard down. You had to have that bracelet a part of that match on Saturday.
Bracelet costs about what, 25 cents to make?
Nothing. Costs nothing.
But meant the world to CM Punk. Do you think that they left anything out? Would you have liked to seen more from the match? Would you have liked to have seen more physicality? Did you expect more from them?
I think, I mentioned it, so I mentioned it again. I do think like there's a cause for blood in certain aspects. If CM Punk was bleeding, if Drew was able to get to him where he drew blood, no pun intended, I think that would have added to the match. Other than that, Bully, I don't think there's much that could have added to that match on Saturday.
I'm asking you these questions for a very specific reason. When I landed yesterday and I got in my car, I was listening to the Sunday show. And I believe it was
Jonathan Hood and Justin LaBar.
Correct. And Hood was like, I really, didn't like the bracelet. I didn't like the match. I was expecting something more. And I called in. I'm like, what more could you have wanted from these guys? I'm like, how do you not understand the bracelet? It is a sentimental thing. It doesn't matter how much the bracelet is. And he had compared the bracelet to like the $10,000 with like Bobby Heenan or whatever. And I'm like, that bracelet means more to CM Punk than any amount of money. That bracelet is priceless because the woman in his life or the person in his life that means more to him than anybody else's name on it. And Larry the dog, his animal, his pet, man's best friend, his name is on it. So to see the story of something so inconsequential, like you look at this bracelet, you're like, but it's what it means to two people. It means the world to Punk. And Drew knows that it meant so much to him. That's why he took it away. And what did Punk want to do? He wanted to get that bracelet back. And he did. And then, how about the part in the match where he realizes that Seth's wearing the bracelet? They went out of their way to tell you how much they're in a blood feud. Yes, we have not gotten blood yet from that. They're in a blood feud, but they're talking about a bracelet. You would never equate a little, rinky-dink, child bracelet to a blood feud. But I believe it added so much because of the personal reasons to CM Punk. So I thought these guys brought it. I enjoyed the level of physicality. I enjoyed the story. I enjoyed the refereeing. It was basically Rollins rules. We knew it was going to be loose refereeing. They even said, this is a regular match. Yeah, we knew it was going to be a regular match, but Seth Rollins is not a regular referee, and he's going to let things go on the way he wanted to let them go on.
When I watched... I'm sorry, boy, not to jump in, because, when I watched it in the stadium, I felt like Seth Rollins was a bit of a distraction and probably wasn't necessary in the match. And I agree with, I think a little blood would have helped because it is a blood feud to me. So again, was it necessary? No, but I'm just saying as an old school fan, I probably would have liked a little bit of that. And then when I watched it back, then I understood the importance of Seth Rollins being there, because I didn't catch all of that when I was at the stadium. And those are the things that you probably, a lot of time, that's why I like to go back and watch the show if I'm at the stadium, watch it again on TV, because you catch extra things that you aren't able to see, and then you hear the commentary as well. And the commentary team was excellent on Saturday to help, complete some of those plot holes in the story too.
And your reasoning right there is exactly the reason why my dad never liked to go to baseball games. I would be like, Dad, come on, let's go to a baseball game. Let's go to a baseball game. We were big, Yankee fans. He's like, why do I want to go to the game when I can sit here in the comfort of my own home and get the replay and get the announcers breaking things down and the who, what, when, where, and why, and the stats and everything. There's so much more to the experience when you watch it on TV. So it sounds like for you, that's exactly what happened. 2 thumbs up from me, from Drew and Punk and Seth. I thought it was excellent. Okay, if somebody would have bled, yeah, but I think there's legs to this. I think there's more to go on. And I'm looking forward to it. Eventually, we're going to get to Seth and Punk, which will most likely be a WrestleMania match. But I don't have anything.
What they were able to do, Bully, and we talked about this over the weekend, I wanted Drew McIntyre to win this match. I don't think I've held back on that opinion at all. One of the biggest reasons why is because we're seeing Drew McIntyre do the best work of his career in the ring and on the microphone. Why would you want that to stop? If Punk gets the win, then the story ends with Drew and then it starts with Seth. Now, just like we're talking about with Roman Reigns, now you have, which way is this going to go? Is this going to go with Drew, or is this going to go with Seth? Because now Punk still has stories with both. They were able to put on a great match. They were able to tell a great story, but they didn't finish anything. Nothing was accomplished on Saturday. This story now continues, and I'm here for it. And Drew McIntyre, as many times as he's gotten screwed over, you couldn't have him get screwed again. At some point, he's got to taste victory, and he tasted it on Saturday. And I love now Punk not getting everything that he wants. And now he's got to fight for it. And this is when do we see the best of CM Punk? When all the odds are against him, when he feels like everybody is against him. Well, now he has that. All those obstacles are in CM Punk's way. So now you had Drew McIntyre taste a little victory. You had Seth Rollins do what he did, which was screw CM Punk. And now you have to have CM Punk fight from adversity and fight from the bottom up. This story has now gotten stronger. And again, Bully, I can't wait for tonight, for Monday Night Raw, because I want to hear from Drew McIntyre. I kind of want to hear Drew McIntyre shove it in CM Punk's face. I want to hear from CM Punk because we have seen snarky CM Punk, but now we're gonna see angry CM Punk, and we're gonna get that tonight on Monday Night Raw. And then Seth Rollins. I want to hear the explanation from Seth Rollins. So once again, Bully, this is going to be a big Monday Night Raw coming off of what we saw on Saturday.
They're going to be in Baltimore, a great wrestling town. Northeast should be really hot for Monday Night Raw coming out of SummerSlam.
And, it's funny, Bully, what you just said about, there's something to be said about sitting and watching it from home. And I think the one match that it really did add to it by being at home and hearing the commentary and catching the verbiage between Seth and Punk, it helped being on TV. But Bully, as you know, and I think really all the other matches would set the tone for it. There's nothing like being there and being a part of the event. And we'll get into it later on with Liv and Rhea. But I got to tell you, being a part of that crowd and going on that emotional roller coaster was pretty insane. Being a part of that live crowd. There's nothing beats it. It's crazy.
That's what it's all about. It's about the roller coaster ride that a professional wrestling match takes you on. The ups, the downs, the happy, the sad, the angry, the adulation, and everything in between. I always talk about human emotions. Human beings, how many emotions does a human being have, Dave?
Hundreds.
Exactly.
Really, yeah.
Lots and lots of different emotions. As a wrestler, when I'm telling a story, whether it's through promos or the match, I want to tap into as many of your emotions as possible. Because if I can get you to emotionally invest, you're going to buy in. You're going to buy in with your head. You're going to buy in with your heart. But most importantly, you're going to buy in with your wallet. Because that's what we want you to do. It's a business. So when you look at a match like a Drew versus a Punk that took you on this great emotional roller coaster ride, and you compare it to more of an athletic match that just does a bunch of high spots. There's only one emotion in a high spot match. Woo, wow, ooh, pop, pop, pop. It's happy, happy, joy, adulation. But so you're only tapping into one emotion. That's not what wrestling is supposed to be. Wrestling.
Well, I think the perfect example of, Bully, what you're saying, I don't mean to step on you, but I just want to bring up this example because it hits the note from what you're saying, is LA Knight and with Logan Paul. Now, Logan Paul, extremely athletic, does things in the ring that are pretty amazing. And he did this moonsault springboard outside onto LA Knight. And he does that. And the fans are like, instead of getting the "this is awesome" chant or "holy shit" chant, they're like, "we still hate you." That's the chant that because even though you did this amazing move, they chanted, "you still suck." That was the chant that they're saying. Nice attempt as trying to get us to chase the hug, but you know what? You still suck. That's because of the emotion that they had, the hatred they had for Logan Paul, and they love they have for LA Knight. You could still do cool shit. Nobody's saying that you can't, but you have to have that emotion. It's like I actually said it to Paul in that match at that moment. I said, you know what? You could be a football fan and you could watch the Super Bowl where you have no emotional attachment to either team. But you know what? You just want to see a good game because you're sitting and you're watching it. But how much better it is when you have a dog in the race and it's your favorite team in the Super Bowl and you don't give a shit about how close the game is or how great a catch that was. You just want to see your team beat the shit out of the other team. It's a lot stronger emotion when it's, you're emotionally connected than when you're not. And I think everybody, Bully, can relate to what you're saying there.
I don't think all wrestling fans can, but I think wrestling fans that don't take wrestling in like that should probably give it a try. I'm not telling you how to watch wrestling. And by the way, I had a couple of people come up to me who thanked me. They're like, Bubba, you help us watch wrestling from a more entertaining point of view. And like, that's one of the greatest compliments I can possibly get. If I'm helping you to, broaden your spectrum or open you up to more emotion, don't just wait for some big move to happen. Allow yourself to be immersed in the story, in the characters, in what's going on in the ring. It's going to be so much more of a pleasurable experience. I always compare, wrestling to lovemaking, about the build-up, and like, if you do it the right way and the foreplay's right and the sex is right and everything is right, by the time you're all done, you're like, oh my God, that was the best, as opposed to, okay, let's do this, and it's like, it feels like a very empty experience.
I always compare it to like when you have a major big spot fest match, it's like drinking Pepsi and eating Twinkies. It tastes good at first, it's sweet, but it's empty calories. You're not going to remember it, and if you get too much of it, you're going to be sick. Like, you got to have some kind of emotional connection in the story being told, or it's going to be forgotten about. And now you could go someplace. If Punk and Drew McIntyre had like this banger match that like they let everything out there and that finished the story, then where do you go from there? But what they were able to do on Saturday is have a match that was entertaining and you get to continue the story. And now I have to watch Monday Night Raw. I have to tune in to find out what the follow-up is going to be from what we saw on Saturday.
WWE, biggest wrestling company on the planet?
There's no doubt. That's not even a question.
When was the last time a professional wrestling match, just based on the maneuvers, the spots, the this, the that, when was the last time a match like that main evented WrestleMania or sold real tickets?
I couldn't tell you.
Exactly. It's about the storytelling and the characters that are involved. That's when wrestling is done right. Now, listen, that's not to say that there aren't other subsets of the art form, but you're never going to be as big as the WWE is unless you have strong characters in strong stories.